My name is Riley. I'm 31 years old. The first thing I noticed was the invoice shaking in my hand. Cream paper, gold lettering, embossed border. Elegant enough to make theft look tasteful. The number at the bottom was so high my eyes stopped focusing for a second. $433,812, already paid or scheduled, and that was before the final catering adjustments. The paper smelled faintly like perfume and fresh toner. Downstairs, I could hear laughter, silverware, champagne corks. My parents were hosting a pre-wedding dinner in their backyard, and the whole property looked like a magazine spread designed to impress people who had never once asked where the money came from. String lights glowed over the pool, the caterers floated around with trays of crab cakes, or mini beef Wellingtons, and little glass cups of lobster mac and cheese that no one was actually finishing because rich performance food is mostly decorative. A jazz playlist drifted through hidden outdoor speakers. Somebody was complimenting the imported peonies. My mother laughed in that bright, expensive way she used when she thought she was winning, and clipped behind the invoice was a transfer confirmation. My account number. Not the full thing, just enough of it. Enough to turn my blood cold. I was standing in my parents' upstairs office with the French doors half open and a sweep of summer air pushing the linen curtains inward. Outside, I could hear heels on stone. Men asking for bourbon. My Aunt Cheryl arguing with a valet. The whole house smelled like roses, grilled steak, truffle oil, and money being burned for applause. And I had spent 9 years building that savings. 9, not trust fund money, not a lucky stock hit, not some secret rich boyfriend nonsense. I worked for every dollar, 2 jobs in college, then 3 different promotions, then a senior operations role at a medical software company outside Boston, where I learned how to survive on 6 hours of sleep and spite. I skipped girls' trips, kept old phones, drove my Honda Civic until the AC made a noise like loose teeth in a tin can. Lived in a one-bedroom apartment with thin walls and HOA emails about balcony plants. That money was not extra, it was my future. A condo, breathing room, security, proof that I would never have to crawl back to anyone if life went sideways. The only reason my parents had ever been near that account at all was because it started when I was 17 and after my grandfather died and left a protected education and housing fund for me. Years ago, during some bank transition, my mother had insisted that keeping her as a legacy contact and temporary cosigner would make paperwork easier. I removed what I thought was all of that later, or at least I thought I did. The invoice shook harder in my hand. I looked again. The venue was a vineyard estate in Connecticut, with a private lake, a sailcloth reception tent, a New York band, custom floral work hanging from the rafters, luxury shuttles from 2 boutique hotels, and enough curated elegance to make strangers call it timeless. My brother Grant was getting married, like he was the heir to a shipping fortune, instead of a 34-year-old man who had maxed out 3 credit cards furnishing an apartment he didn't own. And my savings had paid for it. Not a little, not a chunk, almost all of it. The office door moved behind me. My mother stepped in. "There you are," she said. "I've been looking everywhere. The photographer needs immediate family in 10. Then she saw what was in my hand, and the first thing that crossed her face was not guilt, not panic, irritation. That hurt more than a confession would have. I lifted the paper. "Why is my account number on this?" She closed the door behind her with one soft click. "Lower your voice." I stared at her. "Why is my account number on this?" She exhaled like I was choosing a terrible time to be difficult. "Because your father and I were going to talk to you after the wedding." That landed cleaner than a slap. Not denial, not shame, scheduling. I just stood there looking at her. And it felt like my whole childhood rearranged itself in one ugly straight line. Me packing my own lunches while Grant slept until noon. Me saving birthday money while Grant got a new dirt bike. Me covering my own books, my own rent deposit, my own insurance. Me getting called mature every time I quietly accepted less. She crossed her arms. She was wearing a pale blue silk dress and diamond studs my father bought her after some minor tax issue years ago. She looked flawless, controlled, like she resented having to discuss this before the sea bass had been served. "It's not what you're making it," she said. "Then what is it?" "It's family helping family." There are sentences that explain an entire childhood. That was one of them. I set the invoice on the desk because if I kept holding it, I was going to tear it in half. How much did you take?" "Don't use that word. How much? You are not losing anything. Your brother will pay it back." I laughed once. Dry, sharp, ugly. "With what?" I asked. "Good intentions?" Her jaw tightened. "This is his wedding. There were vendor obligations, timing issues. Your father moved funds temporarily. We had to protect the family from embarrassment." "Protect the family?" "Yes, Riley. Sometimes adults make decisions that are bigger than one person's feelings." Adults. I was 31. I had paid taxes, health insurance, student loans, my own dental emergencies, my own rent, my own life. Grant still called Dad when his internet bill looked weird. I stepped toward the desk and saw more papers under the invoice. Transfer authorizations, vendor wires, payment schedules, one cashier's check image. And I took out my phone and started taking pictures before she could stop me. That was when she lunged, fast enough to surprise me. "Absolutely not." I moved back. "You emptied my account for table linens and a string quartet. Do not be dramatic. How much is left?" She said nothing. That told me enough. Downstairs, somebody shouted Grant's name. Glasses clinked. The smell of butter and garlic drifted up through the AC vent. It felt obscene. That much joy under my feet, while I stood in an upstairs office, realizing my future had been eaten alive by floral arches and imported wine. My father came in 2 minutes later. He took one look at my face and knew. He shut the door and tugged once at his tuxedo cuff like this was an inconvenience between cocktails. "We can discuss this tomorrow." "No," I said. We discuss it now." "Not now." "How much of my money did you take?" He looked at my mother first. "Not me." Parents who know they are wrong still look at each other for permission to continue. "Your brother had a shortfall," he said, "so you stole from me." "Watch your mouth. You moved money out of my account without my permission. It was accessible family money." "No, it wasn't. That account exists because we helped create it." "Grandpa created it." That changed the air. Not enough, but some. My grandfather, Arthur Delaney, had been the only person in that family who ever treated me like a person with a mind instead of a utility device with good manners. He used to take me for hot chocolate after school and ask what I wanted my life to feel like, not what I wanted it to look like. When he died, and he left something separate for me because, as he told me once from his porch swing while Christmas lights blinked across the neighbor's gutters, not every child in a family gets protected equally. Some need paper. Paper. That word came back to me years later in a probate hallway, then again right there. My father's voice cooled another degree. "This family has carried you plenty." I almost admired the nerve. I bought my first laptop from Target with holiday season paychecks. I stood in DMV lines alone. I ate ramen in a freezing apartment while Grant posted boat pictures from Miami. I brought paid-for side dishes to 3 Thanksgivings in a row while my mother praised Grant for showing up with a six-pack. Carried me. That was the lie they needed. "How did you get into that account?" I asked. He hesitated. My mother answered too quickly. There were still legacy permissions attached. I looked at her. "You told me those were removed." "Most were." "Most." I looked from her to him to the transfer pages again. This was not one panicked decision. The wires had gone out over weeks. Venue deposit, florist, rehearsal dinner, transportation, final balance blocks. They were doing it while texting me pictures of cake tastings. Grant walked in without knocking. Of course he did. He smelled like cologne, bourbon, and the smug ease of a man too used to being forgiven before he even apologized. He had on a cream dinner jacket because apparently a normal suit was too humble for a Friday welcome dinner. "What's going on?" My mother spoke first. "Your sister is upset." I turned to him. "Upset." His eyes landed on the invoice. He did not look shocked. He looked trapped. That told me enough, too. "You knew." "Not exactly." "You knew." "I knew they were helping. With my money." "Riley, relax." Some words should come with a legal warning. Relax. The human mind can hold years inside 1 second. Him breaking my bike when we were kids, and me being told not to ruin the weekend. Him failing a semester and getting a new laptop to help him focus. Him totaling Dad's SUV and somehow ending up with sympathy. Him calling me rigid because I kept a budget spreadsheet. Him calling me lucky because Grandpa liked me. Lucky. I looked him straight in the face. "Say it clearly." He shifted. "I didn't ask for specifics." "Say it clearly." "I assumed they were moving things around." "From me." He looked away first. That was the answer. But my mother stepped between us like she was refereeing siblings over a borrowed sweater instead of a theft large enough to carry a court file. "This is why we wanted to wait," she snapped. "You always make everything moral." I almost smiled. "Because it is." My father rubbed his forehead. "The wedding is tomorrow. There are guests flying in from Chicago and Atlanta. The lake house is booked. The vendors are locked. You are not blowing this up over temporary money movement." Temporary? My jaw locked so hard it hurt. "How much is left?" No one answered. Then Grant did. "About 11. For a second, I couldn't hear the music downstairs. Only the AC kicking on, the vent rattling, my own nails digging crescents into my palm. 11,000 left from 434. My mother stepped closer. We plan to restore it." "When?" "After a refinance," my father said. "After bonuses," Grant added. "After gifts," my mother said. It was almost beautiful, the way they stacked imaginary future dollars into a tower high enough to replace money that had actually existed yesterday. I picked up my purse. My father straightened. "Where are you going?" "To undo what I still can. You will not embarrass this family." I looked at him. "Watch me." My mother grabbed my wrist. Her nails bit into my skin through the white gold bracelet she'd given me for my 25th birthday. She used to tell people she bought it because I never asked for enough. Her voice dropped low. "Do not make me regret everything we've done for you." I looked down at her hand, then back at her face. You already should." I pulled free and walked out. No screaming, no glass thrown, no speech on the staircase, just motion. Down the hallway, past framed family photos where Grant always stood in the center. Down the back stairs, because I did not want the grand staircase with its beautiful angle over the lit-up yard and the curated vision of old family friends drinking champagne under rental chandeliers. I crossed the kitchen, smelling lemon zest and butter and garlic, past 2 caterers plating desserts and a florist crouched over a crate of roses. My Aunt Cheryl saw me first. "Riley, honey, where are you going? Family photo." "Emergency." She laughed like I was being quirky. I kept walking. Outside, the July air hit me warm and damp. My heels clicked across stone, past the pool, past the tent. I passed guests in linen and silk and soft summer money. Someone from Madison's side asked where the groom's sister was. Nobody corrected the tone. I wasn't a sister in that moment. I was the quiet female relative in a navy dress who handled things. I got to my car and shut the door. And just sat there, both hands around my phone. There are moments when anger wants spectacle, but survival wants order. I opened my banking app first. The balance loaded, $11,284.17. I stared at it until the number stopped looking like money and started looking like contempt. Then I called the bank's fraud line. I froze digital transfers, flagged unauthorized activity, changed every credential I could reach from the parking lot, requested an immediate hold review. The woman on the line was calm and practical, with the clipped patience of someone who had heard every family disaster in America. "Do you believe the account was accessed by someone with legacy authority?" she asked. "I believe my parents abused old permissions after telling me they were removed." "We can begin the dispute process tonight," she said. "But if trust-linked funds or probate origin restrictions apply, I strongly recommend contacting the originating estate attorney or trustee first thing in the morning." Originating estate attorney. The phrase hit something in me, not exactly memory. A thread. My grandfather's attorney had retired years ago, but before he died, Grandpa had told me one strange thing in a courthouse parking lot after we filed final estate paperwork. "If anyone ever tells you paper is gone, call Evelyn." Evelyn Sloan, my grandmother's cousin. She's a former bank compliance officer, later a family trustee on 2 estates, sharp as broken glass, lived in Newport now, wore pearls like armor, never liked my mother, sent me birthday cards with actual checks until I was 26, because as she wrote once, women need liquid options. I had her number. I had never used it. Until that night. That was the one call. She answered on the third ring. "If this is a sales pitch, I'm already dead." I laughed and almost cried at the same time. "It's Riley!" There was a pause, then her whole voice changed. "What happened?" I looked back at the lit-up house. The tent glowed gold against the dark lawn. Music curled over the water. Somebody near the bar shouted for more ice. My family was spending my life in real time, so I told her, not messily, not all at once, names. G amounts. Account origin. Legacy access. The invoice. The transfers. The wedding tomorrow. The 11,000 left. The word temporary. The fact that my father had once handled stateside communications after Grandpa died because my mother said it would keep everything inside the family. Evelyn listened the way judges probably wish they could. No interruptions, no little sympathy noises. When I finished, she asked one question. "Did Arthur's fund for you ever pass through Delaney Residential Trust before it was moved into your personal account structure?" "I think so," I said. "For education and first home planning. I need every screenshot you have in the next 5 minutes." "Okay?" "Then listen carefully. If your parents touched restricted distributions or misused retained estate-linked authority, this is not a family disagreement. This is traceable." Traceable. That word steadied me more than comfort could have. "Can they make it look authorized?" She gave one dry laugh. "Everyone believes they are clever until compliance reads the timestamp." I sent her everything from the car. Invoices, transfer slips, screenshots, the partial account view, vendor names, the written balance blocks. Then I sat there waiting. Those next 14 minutes felt longer than some relationships. I watched relatives moving behind the tent walls like shadows in a lantern, forklift beeps from the rental truck, ice pouring into steel bins, Grant's laugh carrying across the yard. Then my phone lit up. "You need to leave there and go home," Evelyn said. "Tell me." "I found the old distribution language. Arthur was more careful than your parents knew." I closed my eyes. Her voice sharpened. "Part of the fund did transfer out for your direct control at 25. But the original structure retained a source-specific protection note tied to unauthorized third-party use if access was obtained through old household authority rather than your direct consent. It was inserted after your mother attempted a withdrawal request in 2018. I sat up straight. "What?" "Your grandfather anticipated her." The whole night changed temperature. "You're serious." "Arthur may have loved his daughter," she said. But he trusted paper more. I pressed my hand over my mouth. She kept going. More importantly, I found a compliance advisory letter sent to both your parents through their attorney at the time. It explicitly warned that any use of legacy visibility or outdated family-linked access over your designated fund would be considered unauthorized conversion subject to recovery action. My father had been warned. My mother had been warned. And they did it anyway. Not because they didn't know, because they thought I would take it. My whole hand started shaking again. But it wasn't helpless now. It was fury finding bones. What do I do? I already contacted a partner at Whitmore and Keene, estate recovery and financial abuse. I also know someone in the originating bank's regional oversight office. You will go home. You will email a written statement tonight. Tomorrow morning, you will sign an emergency affidavit before a notary. By noon, we can have formal notice issued. The wedding is at 4. Then they planned poorly. That line was cruel and holy. I drove home past dark storefronts, a Walgreens, a Starbucks with lights still on inside, and a courthouse banner near Town Hall advertising summer concerts on the green. America always keeps moving around your disaster. Teenagers were laughing outside a pizza place. Someone in a pickup truck was blasting country music at a red light. My life had been looted and the Taco Bell drive-thru still had 7 cars in it. At home, my apartment smelled like laundry detergent and the basil plant on the windowsill. Safe smells. Mine. I changed out of my dress, tied my hair up, turned my little dining table into a command center. Laptop, charger, legal pad, water. Every statement I could pull, every old email. Every weird text from Mom asking for my old login to verify transfer history. Every time Dad had asked whether I'd changed that bank thing. Every wedding-related message where Grant called me so stable, like it was praise and not a strategy. There is a point when grief becomes administration. I hit that point around midnight. Evelyn looped in an attorney named Daniel Keene before 1 in the morning. He did not waste words. He wanted dates, account structures, copies of every communication I could remember. Exact vendor names, because recovery and injunction options depended on where the funds had landed and whether services had already been rendered. He wrote one line in an email that I read 3 times. We move fast before performance creates practical shielding. Tomorrow was performance. Literal performance. Vows, band. Lights, speeches, everything carefully staged so nobody had to look at what was underneath. I barely slept. At 6:10 the next morning, I was at a UPS store that had notary services and bad coffee. The notary wore a cardigan, even though it was already hot. She slid the papers toward me and asked me to initial every page. I signed an affidavit stating that I had not authorized any of the disputed uses, that legacy access had been represented to me as removed, and that the funds had origin-linked restrictions tied to first home and direct future planning use. My signature looked too calm for the amount of rage inside me. After that, I drove to the county clerk's office annex because Daniel's office needed one more certified probate-related copy from the old estate file. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A child cried near the records counter. A man in work boots argued about a deed copy. I stood there in linen pants and sunglasses and took a number like any other person in America trying to hold together a life with paper. When my turn came, the clerk slid the copy across the counter with a stamp and a reference line. County Clerk. Case number 2, 024-17823. Paper. Grandpa had been right. By 10:30, Daniel's office had sent formal notices to my parents, Grant, the venue, and 2 major vendors whose balances had been paid from traceable, disputed funds. One notice stated that acceptance or retention of funds under pending unauthorized conversion review could subject recipients to recovery action if they proceeded after notice. At 11:12, my mother called. I let it ring twice, then answered. Bang, what have you done? Protected myself. The venue just called your father. There are legal letters flying around on my son's wedding day. My son. Never our children. Never both of us. My money funded it. You are being vicious. No, I said. Precise. She inhaled sharply like she had been personally injured by vocabulary. The venue is threatening to suspend service until this is clarified. Good. Guests are arriving. They should have a nice lunch. Her voice dropped into its most poisonous register. You always hated seeing your brother happy. It almost impressed me how fast she reached for the oldest script. Make me the bitter one. Make my boundaries jealousy. I hated being useful only when he needed something. She went quiet for one beat, then, come here now. Oh, we can settle this privately. You had months to do that. Don't do this today. You did this months ago. I hung up. My father called next. You withdraw those notices immediately. No. You are putting this family in legal jeopardy. You did that when you touched the account after being warned not to. Silence. Important silence. Then, who told you that? There it was. Confirmation wearing panic. So it's true. He swore, not loudly, worse, quietly, the kind of swearing men do when they realize their secrets have witnesses. You do not understand the language on those old documents. Then the court can explain it. You are not dragging us into court. You dragged yourselves. Then Grant called, not angry, pleading, which somehow made me angrier. Riley, please, Madison is freaking out. Madison. His fiancée, polished, pretty, social media elegant, always kind to me in a way that stayed conveniently shallow. I had never fully decided whether that made her harmless or strategic. She should be. She didn't know. Did you? Not like this. Did you know my money was involved? Silence. Grant? I knew Mom and Dad were covering gaps. With my money. They said it was temporary and family-based. You're 34. I'm trying to fix this. With what? He exhaled hard enough for me to hear it through the phone. Can we just get through today? There it was. The religion of people protected by women. Just get through today. I looked around my apartment, my little basil plant, my coffee mug in the sink, the life I paid for, the life they thought they could still reach into. I did that for years, I said. I'm done. By 1 o'clock, the wedding had not been canceled, but it had changed shape. The venue refused to process final add-ons. The floral team halted part of the hanging installation pending indemnity. The live band demanded proof the final check was clean. One shuttle bus was held. The caterer wanted direct confirmation from council on the remaining balance. It wasn't a collapse yet. It was worse. It was uncertainty. Image with a crack in it. I didn't go to the church first. I went to Daniel's office in Hartford, where he had arranged for me to review the notice chain and sign one more recovery authorization. He was in his 40s, trim, calm, with the kind of blue tie men wear when they want you to think they only ruin lives during business hours. He showed me the old advisory letter. My mother's name, my father's name, dated 6 years earlier, a direct warning. Do not access or redirect designated funds without beneficiary authorization. My throat tightened. Not from shock anymore. From confirmation. Daniel set the paper down. They knew. I know. Then today is not your shame. That line held me upright. He also showed me a response from the venue's council asking whether the family had materially misrepresented the source of funds during contract performance. Daniel did not smile, but his eyes changed a little. They're nervous. Good, Evelyn joined by speakerphone. Arthur would not tell you to hide, she said. I'm not hiding. Then say what is true, she said, and let the right people hear it. That mattered. because by then I had a choice. As I could keep this inside legal channels and let the wedding wobble forward in some ugly half-life. Or I could finish it cleanly, not with screaming in a parking lot, not with a scene built on emotion they could dismiss, with the truth, spoken where the lie had been staged to shine. The immediate family brunch at the church reception hall had been pushed late because of vendor chaos. By 3:15, close family and key guests were gathering in a side hall attached to the chapel grounds, while the coordinator tried to salvage timelines before the 4 o'clock ceremony. Madison's parents were there, their pastor, the maid of honor, the best man, a few older relatives, enough people to matter. So I went, not in the navy dress from the night before. In cream slacks, a black blouse, low heels, no revenge red lipstick. No dramatic funeral outfit, just composure. The church hall smelled like coffee, lilies, and air conditioning fighting for its life. Someone had set out trays of sandwiches and fruit that nobody was touching. Folding easels held seating charts in gold calligraphy. Through the open doors, I could hear staff dragging chairs across stone. When I walked in, conversation didn't stop all at once. It snagged. Little collisions. Heads turning. Madison stood near a window in her robe, hair half set, face pale under bridal makeup. Grant turned and went rigid. My parents were near the coordinator table with two men in suits and a woman holding a clipboard. My mother saw me first. The look on her face made it clear that if she could have erased me with her bare hands, she would have. "You have nerve." I kept walking. "So I learned from you." My father stepped forward. "Not here. Here works." Madison's mother, Celeste, looked between us. "Someone should explain why our florist is refusing to finish installation," she said, "and why legal counsel is asking whether stolen funds paid for my daughter's wedding." There it was. No softened version, no family translation. Stolen. Grant flinched. My mother turned toward Celeste with instant charm. "There is a misunderstanding involving temporary family transfers." I reached into my bag and pulled out the copies. Paper is boring until the moment it becomes fire. "It's not a misunderstanding." I handed one set to Celeste, one to Madison, one to the pastor because public morality tends to grow a spine when it's printed, one to Grant, and one I kept. My father moved toward me. Daniel, but who had come and stayed near the back wall, stepped forward exactly one pace and said quietly, "I would advise against touching my client." My father stopped. That was the first visible crack, not in the finances, in the authority. My parents were used to rooms where confidence functioned as fact, but confidence dies fast when someone with a law license says client in the right tone. Madison looked down at the pages. First the transfer summary, then the advisory letter, then the affidavit acknowledgement. Her mouth opened. "Grant." He didn't answer. Celeste did. "Tell me right now this is false." Grant's face changed the way people's faces do when they realize there is no correct lie left. "I didn't know all of it." "You knew enough," I said. My mother snapped. "Riley, stop performing." I turned to her. As my voice came out steadier than I felt. "Performing is what you paid for. I'm just billing reality." Two women near the coffee station exchanged a look. A good line is sometimes just anger with posture. My father tried another angle. "This fund existed because of family. It was moved within family. It is being restored." Evelyn's voice came through Daniel's speakerphone then, clear and merciless. "Harold, the estate file disagrees." Every head turned. My father looked like somebody had dragged his private mess into daylight and made it read itself. Evelyn continued. "You and Laura received written notice in 2018 that Riley's designated fund was not to be accessed or redirected through outdated household authority. You were warned. You used it anyway. This is unauthorized conversion, and you know it." My mother lost color. Madison looked at Grant like she was meeting him for the first time. You let them do this? I thought they were helping. From your sister? He reached for her arm. She stepped back. Good for her. Then my mother made the mistake that finally killed the room. Not denial, not apology. She looked straight at me in front of everyone and said what she had probably believed for years. She had more than enough. He needed this more. There are sentences a family can survive. That was not one of them. It hung there in daylight. My future versus my brother's wedding aesthetic. And she chose centerpieces. Celeste set her pages down very carefully. You used your daughter's protected funds for my daughter's wedding without disclosure. Don't make this uglier, my mother said. But Celeste gave her a look so cold it could have frosted glass. You brought ugly with you. The coordinator quietly slipped out of the room, probably to make 20 calls. The pastor cleared his throat and said nothing, useful in its own way. Moral men often turn into furniture when money enters the room. I looked at Grant then. Really looked. His jaw was tight. His eyes were wet, but not with remorse first, with collapse, with the realization that for the first time in his life, the cost of being the chosen child had arrived with witnesses. Do you know what that money was? I asked him. He swallowed. Riley. No. Answer me inside your own head if you have to. I took a breath. It was every apartment I stayed too long in, every flight I didn't take, every Christmas gift I bought with a calculator open beside me, every weekend I worked, every plan I made so I would never need them. My voice shook on the last word. Not weakness, weight. I built a life that did not depend on people who only loved me when I was useful. And you all still reached in and treated me like storage. Nobody saved him. Nobody should have. Madison took off her engagement ring and held it in her palm like it had become something sharp. Was our venue paid with her money? Grant said nothing. She looked straight at him. Answer me. Partly. She laughed once. Broken. Small. You let me walk into a wedding built on theft. Then she set the ring on the table beside the seating chart. Not dramatic. Precise. I respected that. Then my Aunt Cheryl, of all people, stepped forward. Laura, she said to my mother. Is this true? Do not start. Is it true? My father tried to bulldoze the room. This does not concern extended family. Aunt Cheryl looked at him with more backbone than I'd ever seen from her. You made it concern us when you invited us to clap for it. There it was, the witness turn. One of the simplest twists in real life is this. People stay loyal to power until power gets sloppy. I could feel the room tipping. A cousin near the door muttered, "Oh my God." Someone else whispered, "I knew something was off." An older uncle asked whether the police were involved. Celeste was already texting somebody. Madison's maid of honor was crying from stress or rage or both. My mother looked at me with pure hatred then, not disappointment, not maternal anger. Hatred, because I had finally become expensive to mistreat. Then she took one step toward me. You always wanted to humiliate us? I met her eyes. No, I wanted one day when you could not rewrite me. That landed. Deep. Even my father looked away. Some lines aren't poetry, they're evidence with blood in them. Daniel stepped in then, perfectly timed. For the record, further dissipation of disputed funds after notice has been served may increase exposure. My recommendation is that all non-essential performance obligations cease until recovery arrangements are made. Celeste turned to Madison. The ceremony is off. Grant made a sound like he'd been hit. No, wait, we can fix this. Madison looked at him with her face gone still. You should have fixed it before I got dressed. Then she walked out. Her mother followed. Half the room moved with them. The wedding didn't explode all at once. It split. Quietly first. Then structurally. The band packed up by 4. The floral team removed 2 installations and left the unfinished overhead frame hanging like a dead chandelier. The caterer served what had already been prepared so it wouldn't be wasted, but nobody called it a reception. The lake photos never happened. One shuttle left half empty. Somewhere in a storage tent, a custom ice sculpture melted unused, which felt like the most honest object on the property. My father spent the next hour on the phone alternating between rage and negotiation. My mother cried in exactly the places people could see. Grant sat alone in a side room in his tuxedo staring at nothing. I did not go to him. Some griefs are earned, some are just invoices coming due. By that evening, Daniel had negotiated an initial emergency restitution framework. My parents' brokerage line was frozen pending transfer review. A second property they held through an LLC was flagged for collateral support. A substantial portion of the remaining wedding money held by vendors was paused or returned into legal escrow while ownership was sorted. It would take time to recover everything. But the shape of the ending had changed. I was no longer begging to be believed. They were trying to limit damage. That night I went back to my apartment and sat on the floor instead of the couch because the couch felt too normal. The basil plant needed water. My fridge hummed. Somewhere outside, kids were setting off leftover 4th of July fireworks, even though the holiday had passed. Little bursts of sound, bright, stupid. Yes, America loves noise after ruin. I cried then, not because I doubted what I had done, because a family illusion had finally died, and even dead lies leave a body behind. The next week was signatures, courthouses, escrow arrangements, affidavit expansions, probate references, controlled fallout. My mother sent 3 messages that began with, "I'm sorry you feel." My father sent one that said, "This has gone too far." Grant sent a whole paragraph about pressure, shame, and loving me in his own way, which was almost insulting enough to be funny. I didn't answer any of them directly. My attorney did. Within 12 days, enough money had been clawed back or secured to restore most of what was missing. The rest went into a formal restitution schedule backed by recorded collateral. My parents did not do this out of awakening. Oh, they did it because paper had them by the throat. Grandpa knew them better than I did. That was one grief. Another was realizing how long I had spent trying to earn tenderness from people who preferred access. At the final mediation session, my mother tried one last version of the old story. "You could have come to us quietly." I looked at her across a beige conference table in a room with stale coffee and a fake plant in the corner. "I did," I said. "In your office, with the invoice in my hand." She looked down. My father said nothing. That was new. Grant came in late. No glossy confidence, no event energy. Just a tired man in a wrinkled button-down shirt with eyes that looked older than his age. He sat across from me and said, "I didn't think they'd really take it all." There are confessions that ask for mercy. That one asked for absolution. I gave neither. "That is the luxury of being you," I said. "You never had to think the cost all the way through." He cried then, real tears. I watched them fall and felt almost nothing. Not because I was cruel, because some wells dry up after years of being used as buckets. He asked if Madison might come back. I told him I didn't know. Then I gave him the only honest sentence I had. Whatever leaves when the truth arrives was not stable to begin with. He nodded like that hurt. It should have. A month later, the first full restitution transfer cleared. I remember exactly where I was. Standing in line at Walmart buying detergent, paper towels, and cat food for a friend who was out of town. Blue basket, fluorescent lights, a little girl begging for marshmallow cereal in the next aisle. Oh, my balance updated on my phone. And something in me changed with it. Not just the number, my breathing, my sleep. My future came back in digits first, then in air, then in quiet. By fall, I put a down payment on a 2-bedroom condo 15 minutes from my office. Nothing flashy. Brick building, small balcony, HOA rules annoying but survivable. Good light in the kitchen, quiet hallway. The kind of place where nobody felt entitled to my keys. At closing, the pen kept skipping, And I remember thinking about every year I had made myself smaller to keep the peace. Peace built on your disappearance is not peace. It's compliance with better lighting. That became one of my private lines. I never gave my family the polished version. They didn't deserve it. My mother tried once more at Thanksgiving, a text. I would love to have a healing conversation. Healing is such a beautiful word. People use it when they want access without accountability. I wrote back, no, we have a legal settlement and permanent boundaries. Keep both. Then I blocked her. My father sent a Christmas card anyway. No note. Just a printed family photo from years earlier, where Grant stood in the middle and I stood half a step back near the tree, smiling like someone who still believed effort could turn into belonging. I threw it away without opening the envelope all the way. Evelyn sent me a brass house keychain and one line in the card. Arthur would say, paper and spine. I keep that card in my desk. Because sometimes the line between survival and revenge is simple. It's refusing to stay available for the next injury. But people love dramatic justice because it makes pain look cinematic. But most real revenge is quieter than that. It's signatures, password changes, affidavits, saying no in a calm voice, walking into the county clerk's office instead of back into your mother's version of reality, learning that restraint is not the same thing as weakness. The wedding photos never made it online. There are a few blurry phone shots from the brunch. No ceremony album, no lake portraits, no first dance under suspended flowers. Madison moved to Chicago 6 months later. Grant never married her. Last I heard, he was renting a smaller apartment and trying, for the first time in his life, to understand what things cost when nobody quietly pays above him. My parents sold the LLC property the following spring. Oh, that covered the final restitution balance and some of their own legal fees. In their neighborhood, people called it downsizing. Wealthy suburbs always invent elegant language for consequences. My mother still hosts things, from what I hear. Smaller now. More careful guest lists. My father joined a different club after rumors got awkward at the first one. Image survives longer than love in some families, but not forever. I'm not telling this story because I got every emotional ending I wanted. I didn't. There was no last-minute apology that fixed childhood, no scene where my mother finally looked at me and admitted she used me, no brother transformed by one catastrophe into a decent man. Real endings are meaner than that. And cleaner. I got my future back, I got proof, I got out, that is enough. Some daughters are raised to be loved. Some are raised to absorb. The dangerous moment comes when the second kind learns documentation. I was never the dramatic one in my family. I was the reliable one, the understanding one, the one who could be counted on not to ruin the holiday, not to make grandma uncomfortable, not to bring up the old thing, not to embarrass anybody in front of neighbors, not to mind the pull-out couch, not to question the unequal check, not to ask why my brother's failures came with rescue and mine would have come with lectures. A family can build an entire religion out of one daughter's silence. Mine did. Then they made one mistake. They confused silence with surrender. What they took from me was money. What they revealed was value. Not mine, theirs. How cheaply they priced me. How easily they justified it. How sure they were that I would swallow one more injury to protect their beautiful day. But there comes a point when obedience stops looking like love and starts looking like self-erasure. I had lived too long in that shape already. Bent enough, paid enough, waited enough, explained enough. One call did what years of loyalty never could. It made the truth arrive with authority. It made their confidence answer questions. It made a room full of people see what I had known in fragments my whole life. I was never a child to protect in that house. I was a resource, useful when full, irritating when empty. And the day they drained me for centerpieces and violinists and imported wine was the day I finally understood something simple enough to build a future on. If people only respect your boundaries when a lawyer says them, they never respected you at all. I sleep well in my condo now. The mornings are quiet. Sunlight hits the kitchen counter around 8. Sometimes I make coffee and stand on the balcony listening to traffic and dogs barking, and somebody somewhere always leaf blowing too early because this is America, and apparently peace is illegal after sunrise. There's a small dent in the hallway wall from move-in day I still haven't fixed. My bedside lamp doesn't match the one in the living room. I have a drawer full of takeout menus I never use because everybody orders online now. It's ordinary. I love it. Nothing in it was paid for by my silence. Nothing in it can be reached by guilt. My future is not family property anymore. It is mine. And before I end this, let me ask you something. Have you ever been the dependable one in a family that confused your love with access? Have you ever realized people only called you strong when what they really meant was easy to use? Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me what time it is there. And tell me honestly what you would have done in my place. Would you have stayed quiet through the wedding? Or would you have made the one call too? And if this story hit something in you, like it, subscribe, and stay with me. Because sometimes the loudest revenge in the world is still a calm voice saying, no, not this time, not anymore.